There we go. So next month, November, we'll be doing 2 movements that will be beyond our normal flute playing. We'll be doing 1 movement from beatboxing and beyond, which some of this group might have done in the Etude of the Week course at some point. And then they just launched a brand new book called Into the Beyond. I think it just is on shelves now. And so we'll be doing 1 movement from there. And on their website, they've provided 1 movement from each for free, digital download. In addition to that, for the next 2 weeks, starting today, Flute World is going to give 20% off those 2 titles, and I'll put the discount code for that. So between now and I think a week from tomorrow, the 20% discount code would be active. If anybody is interested in purchasing either of those books, you might have the Beatboxing and Beyond from before, but Into the Beyond is literally just being printed, just got off the printer this week. So that'll be great. So keep your eyes open on the for announcement on the Facebook page for those codes and whatnot. Any questions about November? Kind of exciting. I've not done either of these books before, so I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know how comfortable I'll be with beatboxing. It's not something I've spent time trying to do. But life's an adventure. We should try to have a little fun, including in playing the flute. Out of curiosity,
it'll be fun. It's a new thing. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and you experience with the book.
Beatboxing was probably the best attended class I sat in on at NFA. Like, it was standing room in the back.
Awesome.
So apparently it's a popular topic and should be lots of fun. I did do the book in Etude of the Week, but life got in the way and I never made it to the end of the book where the study is that we'll be doing this month. So this is my second opportunity to go back and play it.
So this is a little further into the book than what you did in the Etude?
Yeah. I think the one they're giving us is the last one in the book.
Neat. And in the discussion with them, again, I don't know these Etudes yet, but they said that these are performance level, like performance-able Etudes. So I think that's kind of cool to sometimes tag onto your program a little unaccompanied, something to get the audience to wake back up. So I'm really looking forward to working alongside those 2 brilliant women as well. Today's class, it looks like we're going to be covering up to 3 pieces, including the Mozart Rondo in D, the Gossec Gavotte in D, and the U Nocturne. Out of curiosity, can everyone just type into the chat what piece or pieces you've been working on this month, so I can kind of decide how to divide today's talk time. We got a Mozart. We're going to inspire you, Daniel, to pick up 3 new pieces to add to your next recital. Another Mozart, another Mozart, another Mozart. Gavotte and Mozart, cool. Awesome, and I think that's all the people who are here right now. So we'll spend most of the time on Mozart and also talk through the Gavotte, because it's a great piece to play. I've never performed on like a stage the Gavotte, but I've had a lot of students work on it. So it is a great piece that, regardless of what level you normally would program onto your performance, it's a great piece for us to talk about how to practice, because those of us who are teaching can also learn from each other, like additional tips and whatnot of what we would say to our students in that. With that in mind, how warmed up is everybody feeling today? Have we already played some notes? Have we played a lot of notes? I haven't. I did a yoga class and then got coffee afterwards. The yoga class is at 7:30. I thought I'd have plenty of time. And then I looked at my watch. It was like 10 minutes before the class started. So I drove faster than I should have to get home.
It's 8 a.m. here and my wife is sleeping, so notes would cause me pain.
So what's that?
Notes would get me in trouble if I played right about now. My wife is sleeping. It's 8 o'clock here in California.
Oh yeah, where is everybody right now? We've got Sean in California. I'm in St. Louis. We've got a small crowd. We can do a little hello, get to know each other. Viola, where are you?
Sorry, New York.
New York? Daniel?
Well, last time I checked, I was in Toronto.
Toronto, you think you might still be there?
I think so.
Nick, where are
A
you?
little sleepy.
I'm in Massachusetts. I'm Cape Cod.
Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Hi, Anthony, where are you?
Hello, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Nice. Lily, you there? Where are you?
I mean, in Taiwan.
In Taiwan. Wow. Thanks for joining us today. And
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? Florida, maybe? I don't know which Chris that is. Anyway, great. So both of the pieces that we are talking about today then are in D, right? They're both in D major. So let's go ahead, and even if you've warmed up a little bit, just kind of consider D major. There are ways that I like to practice that don't involve making sound. So Sean mentioned that it's early in the morning on the West Coast, and he doesn't want his wife to be I can't imagine her being angry though, but I guess it can happen. Sometimes when I am thinking of a technical warm-up, it's fine to not play at all. I like to just do mental practice without even holding a flute in my hand. But one of my favorite ways of practicing notes is to put the flute on my left shoulder and balance the flute so I can see all of my fingers on the keys. And so this way, and Sean, you can do it with a stir spoon or something like that if you want. Let's think our way through the D major scale, since we're about to play a bunch of D major scale. That way you don't have to have your flute out, but if you've got one, cool. So we have D, low D with the first finger down, E, F sharp, G, A, B, open C sharp, middle D with the first finger up, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, high D, and back down, right? So it's great to practice even when we can't make a lot of sound. Mental practice is super powerful. I'm not going to talk this whole time through. I want everyone to do some shout outs. So we're going to start with our practice today with the Mozart Rondo in D, since more people are working on that right now. So we broke this down this month in Solo of the Month into 3 different chunks. We are in the 3rd chunk this week, the final chunk, but I'd like to start with that final chunk of what we've been practicing this week and simply ask out, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns, or tips that we can discuss as a group? This is measure 111 to the end. So looking at this ending chunk of Mozart, let's talk.
Well, if no one's talkative, I think the part that I had to pay some attention to is there's a trill that's marked on like the 2nd 16th of a beat that's kind of awkward to squeeze in right there. You know what I'm talking about? Find the music.
That happens a few times in here, like the 2nd 16th. I see one in like measure 128 with a that section.
I don't know, your Zoom killed your flute.
Oh, thanks for the reminder that when we talk, original sound for musicians off. When we play, original sound for musicians on. So in the measure 124 area, we've got that
That's the one.
And I'm completely distorting the rhythm. I've never performed this before. And I know part of the reason I am doing that is because there is some animated film that I saw a long time ago. And for some reason, that theme, which I don't know which animated film it is, pops into my head. And I automatically start wanting to play that. So let's start with that section because it is the trickiest looking section, I think. So measure 127, 6/5, measure 124. How are we going to approach those marked trills? Thoughts from the group? Peanut gallery time.
Well, I think what I ended up doing was just making them little mordents.
Little mordents,
right? I tried making them little turns, but that felt a little too rushed. I couldn't make it as graceful as I wanted.
Am I doing that right rhythmically? Everyone kind of get what I'm doing. 1 and 2, triplet and 1, 2, 1, triplet and 1. Right? Let's all try that and see how it feels. So from measure 124, if you got a flute handy, play it. If you don't have a flute handy, sing it. 1, and 2. Right, all right, going an A, right? Cool. So let's see how that would feel a little bit faster. 1 and 2. All right, how does that feel to all of you? I don't see any flutes out today, so I can't ask anybody to demonstrate it back to me, just so I can hear how it sounds. Anybody have a flute?
I would if it wouldn't get me in trouble, but it sounds like we're swallowing the, like, if in bar 24 we're swallowing the G.
Because that mordant is taking too much time away from the
Yeah,
end.
it's taking too much time. I think what I ended up doing with it was stealing time from the preceding tied note.
Mm-hmm. I keep wanting to put a gruppetto in so much.
Yeah, I tried that too. It sounds neat though.
I think you can put a gruppetto in there, but you gotta cheat the rhythm a little bit and maybe change the articulation so that you tie the note over and keep it within the slur so that you don't get bobbled with the fingers or tied up with the articulation. I mean, I've done that in the past too, so you could do something like this. Oh, I'm sorry, original sound. So you're cheating the rhythm a little bit, but it gives you enough room to get the gruppetto in there, and also by changing the articulation to have everything under the slur, it gives it a more linear line too. So that could also be another option if you want to fit the gruppetto in.
So the way that gruppetto is going to fit, as Nick described, is going to be thinking the 5 notes starting on beat 2. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 1, hippopotamus and 1, right? So let's all think through that together. Nice and slow. 1 and 2. Oh, sorry. Before I try, because Nick, that was your demonstration, do you put the G on the and then?
That's a great question.
Are you, since the F is suspended, are you putting a G on the beat 2?
So I'm starting it a little bit early. So 1 and 2 and so I don't actually play them as, what is it? What would it be? Like 30 seconds? I'm actually having them be even 16ths.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm even starting before beat 2. 1 and 2 and
Okay. So that time it sounded like you put the G on beat 2.
I did, yep.
Let's try that together. Where we're going to start the gruppetto, we're going to not do the suspension. Instead, we're going to start the gruppetto note, the upper neighbor on beat 2, just to try it. So we'll feel that together. This is 124. We'll see how it feels. We get to answer questions after we get to try on some clothes, right? Nobody asks you to go to the mall and like pick your prom dress without trying a few on. Daniel can pick his prom dress without, he just knows that size so well, right? All right, here is 124. 1 and 2. course, you would play a C sharp in measure 126. Sorry about that C natural in there. How's that feeling so far? We'll try faster. This will be like F, G, F, E, F, G, A, E,
Oh.
D, E, D, C, C, E, F, F, C, beef, C, beef, A, C, beef, A, beef, C, D, D. I haven't tried to sing this yet, so my mouth is not quite awake yet. Yeah, you have a question, Daniel?
Just does anybody have the score they can share with me?
Does somebody have? I'm on my score's on the tablet right now, so that's not a quick transfer. But anybody have one to put in the chat?
I can work on that. Give me a second.
Thanks. All right, let's try that one
Yeah,
again.
it seems like it's much easier to find the version in C that the violinists play.
All right, here's 124, tiny bit faster. 1 and 2. I keep playing C natural, sorry. Because I want to play the one in C natural. That's not the case here. I just haven't. I didn't play my D major scale enough yet today, I guess, since I'm playing C natural still. All right, so how does that sound? Is there a third option that anybody wants to consider as we are trying on our ornaments to wear? Some of you hear me oftentimes say, I am not a teacher who says this is the way it should be. I am a teacher who will say this is the way it could be. So I think so far we have two totally fine ways that it could be. One is a mordent, one is a gruppetto. A trill is not an impossible thing there. Is anybody trying to put actual trills on those little 16th notes in the group that wants to demonstrate that out? Yeah, it just seems like more work than I feel like doing. So I will probably err on the side of the gruppetto as I start to play this, and putting the upper neighbor on beat 2, even though it's very clearly written as a suspension. It's just, I don't know. Sorry, Mozart. I'm interrupting your suspension for the sake of making my inner child, I think, a little happier, because that is like definitely like an animated movie theme song and right there. All right, so thank you, Sean, for bringing up that section. And hopefully you all have a few ways that you can start thinking about that. Yeah, Daniel.
I just think the last way that we did it, the way Nick suggested, lays easiest under my fingers. I know I have actually played this before. It was a long time ago. And I always remember having trouble hitting the rhythm with trill. I was always using a trill before. And I think the way that Nick suggested the gruppetto, it lies easy for me. I feel the rhythm much more easily.
Yeah. I like that gruppetto also. It feels natural. So trying to fit in 5 notes and the suspension felt a little bit awkward. Trying to re-articulate the F natural felt a little bit awkward for me. So as you are practicing this piece, you get to discover what's going to feel best for you. There's lots of ways that this could be.
I think the other option is to just ignore the way it's written there and do it the way it's written in like 147.
Uh-huh. Although the difference between this section and 147 is the and in 147 is a repeat of the principal note, and
Yep.
here the and is a step higher than the principal note.
Step higher.
Does everybody see what I mean by that? In measure 147, the suspension is coming from the E, but then the next part of the beat that we would identify after the ornament is also an E. So that makes more sense to do. That is a printed out gruppetto that we have at 147, but there's one fewer note needed. So I do like that a lot, Sean, but there's 4 notes instead of 5 for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts about that section? There you are.
In terms of what's going on with the accompaniment at that point, is starting on, cutting that suspension short, going to interfere with the D minor chord that's going on in the accompaniment?
Ooh, very good question. Any theory-loving people out there want to discuss how that's going to affect it?
My teacher told me to always check the score.
Always check the score. I love it. Any score holders out there have it? I only have a flute part on this tablet right now. Anybody with a score want to check? You know what I like to do in addition to checking the score is a very wonderful academic way of going about it. I like to check my ear. So I'm going to slow the tempo down to, I don't know, 54. So hopefully I will be able to demonstrate both of these examples. And with the accompaniment, the My Pianist Pro accompaniment, and we'll just see how it feels with that. How about that? All right, so that was the gruppetto.
That was the gruppetto. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm cracking all of my Fs today, and that is not a cracky note, so. All right, so using our ears, what are some thoughts that we had about those two versions? My first question, did either sound bad or wrong or a no to you all? Anybody in the room?
No. No,
So-
they both sounded good.
Both sound like viable options. Awesome. I love
Yes.
that we have options because then we have choice and then we have the ability to put some personality behind it, right? Cool. So that help you feel like you can make the choice and not be concerned with it?
Yeah.
You can make your choice, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm also totally willing to go find all the recordings of it and listen to which choice the different performers did and figure out which one I like better, right? So I don't have to practice all the options. I can find people who did and listen to their outcomes and see which one I want to emulate.
Ah, I see. So Daniel, when he goes shopping for his prom clothes, knows the size and can just pick it out. Sean isn't going to try on the clothes. Sean's going to look at the pictures of all of the models trying on the clothes. And I want to try it all on, I guess. Plus, for me, the more versions of something that I try, the more time I'm spending practicing my flute. And that's also kind of a good thing for me. Like, I don't know, it keeps my flute out of the case that much longer. So this ending section of the Mozart, any other parts that we want to talk about?
Someone posted a question.
The AG
think
sharp
it
trill.
was Chris, the AG sharp trill. Yeah.
Is anybody using a trill fingering for that AG sharp?
I've been practicing it straight, but I'm perfectly willing to change if a trill fingering sounds better.
I don't know that I even know what the trill fingering for that is.
Isn't I'd have to grab my flute. Isn't it trilling LH3 on a G sharp fingering? I don't know. I'd have to actually try it.
LH3 is what you're saying?
Muscle memory will kick in if I go find
Or
this.
second trill key is were you doing second trill key, Nick?
First trill key.
First?
First trill key.
Hearing G sharp and first trill key.
Let's hear you do it.
It's a little flat.
Can you
As opposed
start
to
the A on that, or do you need to do real finger A, real G sharp, and then trill fingering?
That's the real. This is the trill A. So it's a little low, but if you give a little bit more support, it should be fine.
There you go. Hey, is the Chris who's in this call the Chris who had that chat, who posed that message? If so, I hope that that gives you some options. So what we're talking about, in case anybody isn't catching up with the amount of caffeine that I've had today, 167. There is printed out 30-second notes moving between a high A and a high G sharp. And the high A G sharp fingering, that'd be a good one to practice on your shoulder if you are using real fingerings. Remember, high A does require pinky to stay down. So A, thumb 2, 1 pinky, G sharp 2, 3, 4, moving back and forth. For me, when I see the motion of the fingers going up and down, it really helps me feel more precise with the pressing of the A key and the lifting of the other keys, or sorry, the pressing of the F key, going to that A. So if you are doing real fingerings, then I recommend practicing that interval before you worry about playing the piece of music. Practicing it on the shoulder and make sure that the fingers are moving in sync with each other. Practicing it for real. Slowly, and ideally, you probably have teachers tell you washing your fingers in the mirror to make sure none of them are doing any extra lift or motion. You can also add some rhythms in there, like the long, short, long rhythm distortion. And the short, long. When I was a youth, my teacher would have me turn a metronome on and start with eighth notes. Start with eighth notes. And I wouldn't normally bob this much, so I know it gets confusing with students when they see like us metronome to them. I'm trying to not do that as a teacher now, because now my students feel like they need to bob up and down to show the beat too. So I'm going to bob up and down. I'm sorry, because I don't feel like turning the metronome on. I sped up right then, sorry, but like doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6s and 7s and stuff like that until eventually you get to 8s, which is what this is going to be. So that's also a fine way of getting that technique. And then, yeah, you might choose to arrive at that high A using your G sharp fingering first stroke key. Or if your natural finger habit is going to be like mine, you're going to arrive at that high A with the real high A fingering, and then maybe consider after you switch to the real G sharp fingering using that first stroke key there. Is anybody using that trill fingering? Like currently already using the trill fingering? Nope, we're all doing the real fingering right now. All right, but it's nice to know that there is an option. And the option doesn't have to be for every day. There's gonna be days that I just don't feel like working as hard and I'm gonna take the shortcut. Because I would rather take the shortcut and still enjoy making music than try to do it the right way and not play for as long. So for me, shortcuts are not crutches. Shortcuts are opportunities for me to still find enjoyment in what I'm doing. Thanks for bringing that up, Sean. That's actually the next thing that my eye was thinking of, because I saw that question in the forum. Any other parts in this that people want to talk about? This ending section specifically.
What to do about the fermatas?
What to do about the fermatas if you're using the My Pianist Pro app specifically?
Yeah, or
fermatas?
in general, right? If you're not, then I think I found one print edition that had some little embellishments on that, and I think that's what I ended up playing.
Yeah, I think both of these might actually be the same. Yeah, they're the same, just different years, I guess. But this print version that I have has a little written out cadenza type of thing. I don't know that I could fit that all in on the fermatas of the My Pianist Pro app or not, or if I would be able to train it, or if I have the patience to train it.
I tried, it got a little confused, but it sort of worked out in the end. It
Is
met
yours
back at the
also
theme.
the Suntag arranger editor?
Good question.
Anybody playing a cadenza in those sections? And if so, would you like to play out your cadenza and talk about how you decided of choosing that cadenza?
I have the International Edition, which also has what we've worked on before, the Andante in C. That's combined with the two pieces. And there is a written out cadenza in it as well. So
Hey,
I've
how about this? Since this version I have has a written out cadenza and your version has a written out cadenza, would you demonstrate with the one that's in the international edition?
sure.
Thanks. Lovely, and thank you. And that's the international edition you said?
Mhm.
I think that's actually on my bookshelf somewhere, but I guess because it's got two pieces of music in it, I didn't file it with this. That will be, oh, that's a New Year's conversation of like, how do you file your music and how do you file your music when there's multiple titles? All right, so this one, I'm sorry about the sight reading. I'm going to remember my C sharps though, since I missed those already a few times today. Something along those lines. I might hold certain fermatas longer or shorter if I worked on this a little bit more. This is completely out of sight, out of mind to me since I'm playing from the My Pianist Pro app, so I didn't even think too much. People playing with the My Pianist Pro app, are you doing anything there? And you don't have your flute out, Sean, but could you hum to us or give
I
us a
think the
thought?
one I'm doing is almost identical to the international edition. And then I put it in learn my phrasing mode, and it hasn't quite figured it out yet, but it is meeting me back at the main theme. So I'm like, yeah, it's close.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with a cadenza, it's always good to just make your own or play around. So the first, I don't know, there's not a lot of time there. I think when I'm not really paying attention, I put in just like a little trill. I don't know. And then you noodle around a little bit until you end on a D, and hopefully you're with the piano at the downbeat. Anybody writing cadenzas out there or going to write a cadenza out there for this?
I might take a stab at it at some point.
If I were performing this piece, if I were putting it on a recital, I would probably try to write my own just to give it a little bit of something. But, with this group just coming together to practice a little bit, I will admit that I'm probably not going to take the time to do that right now. So as you all do, I'd love to hear them. Please just post your cadenza thoughts as a separate little post too. We might make a little header for people to put their thoughts on cadenzas. The rest of this piece. So we talked about the ending since that's the newest part to us. We've had some time to digest already the beginning and middle sections. Are there any questions or concerns that are remaining from the opening part of this? Any questions, comments, or thoughts about the middle part of it? Would anybody like to demonstrate any section of it and just play out, and we can all clap for you and then talk about what it felt like to play, and what you're feeling when you're playing it, or what we're hearing as the audience? We have such a quiet group today. Do we need to reschedule these classes for like, I don't know, after dinner? That's when I get tired. After dinner is when I'm sleepy. So I don't know what time it is in Taiwan.
Well, I don't want to play anything at the moment, but I will say and just add to the discussion that I think this is such a great piece. And you guys know me, I am the champion of this little thing. So I think this is such a great piece also for people to really grab a hold of their piccolos and take some time to practice just getting used to the idea of the sound of the piccolo, the feel of the instrument. It's in such a great key for the piccolo, like D major. That's it's such a great key for the flute too. If you think back historically, like most of these period instruments were pitched in D, so that's like our thing. Um, but it's in such a comfortable range for the instrument. So if you all have piccolo, panic, pull your piccolos out of your cases and really try this. It's a really beautiful piece, and I think it translates really well into the instrument.
I love that. Maybe I'll do that today. Probably not, but maybe I will. That is a great thought, Nick. And as you post away, feel free to post on anything. Those of you who are using the My Pianist Pro app, the app also will transpose. You don't need to hit a transpose button for piccolo. The piano as it's written will sound good. But if you are I am more along the lines of being an alto flute lover than I am a piccolo lover. So this would not be a piece that I would love to play on alto because I don't love playing above a high E flat on alto. And this does go up to at least high A, I'm seeing on this page. But you can just hit the transpose button on the My Pianist Pro app. Oh, it's approaching midnight in Taiwan. Oh, well, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we do need to find just more times to get together. All right, so nobody wants to hop through and play through a big chunk of this, or a small chunk, or any chunk of this Mozart today. Feeling like our questions are answered? All right, we're connecting through music. This is great. And then let's talk about then a bit of time on the Gavotte. This is Gossec. A lot of these pieces also, just so you know, especially those who are in the second Solo of the Month group and teachers, Yuho, the person who runs My Pianist Pro, he's putting most of the red and white book, the concert and contest collection book, on My Pianist Pro. He's going to be putting more of those level of pieces on, which is where I know that this piece from, I think, was in that book. All right, so this is also in D major. It is delightful. And who in the group is working on this? Was it one person, or do more people know it? Or any chance anybody can pull it up on Flute Tunes and put it in the chat, just so everyone can quick grab it? And who was playing that piece? Was it Chris? Thank you, Nick, for putting that in the chat. The Gavotte is a delightful little dancey piece. And it's relatively short. So in this version, it fits on one page. So when we're looking at, let's just talk about, I guess, the first bit of it, measures 1 through 16. Are there any questions or comments and thoughts of how we're working on those first 16 measures? Or ways that you would teach it out. So if everyone feels versed in this piece and we don't need to discuss how to practice it, maybe we can talk about how to teach it. So what are some approaches that you all would take to sharing this piece with a student of yours who is learning it for the first time? One of the one of the ways that I approach a lot of stuff in teaching, when I see a lot of articulations, I have my students play it oftentimes slurred first. And part of that is because the easy way of teaching young players staccato is to tell them that staccato means short, which, of course, we all know it doesn't really mean that, but that is a quick, easy way of getting an entire band to play something in a similar style. And then once students start to see those little dots over notes, it's really hard for them to think of that as meaning anything other than short. So for a few reasons, I'll have students play tongued, faster tongued or staccato stuff slurred first. One is so that way they begin to identify where the airstream moves. One is for the placement of the air, centering tone. And then the other is for me to break a habit. I like to go completely to the other edge of the habit, like the other spectrum, and then work my way to the middle from there. So I might have a student look at this and play the first 2 measures slurred. And then, I don't know, I might have them do breath attack because that makes them center their tone better, and then add the tongue in after that. So that's one approach that I
Original
might take.
Patio.
It sounded really good. Another place that I would probably have students look at before they even start playing the music, because I like to have students avoid practicing mistakes, because when they practice mistakes, they learn mistakes, right? And so glancing through for places where common mistakes would happen, measure 9, that scale in thirds, and 11. It's only a couple of notes scale in thirds, but a younger player probably hasn't spent much time practicing their scales in thirds. So a warm-up that I would have them do before playing this would be the D major scale in thirds. So thinking D, F sharp, E, G, F sharp, A, G, B, A, C sharp, B, D, C sharp, E, D. Playing it before here, but then also just isolating that chunk. So in measure 9, taking the E, G, F sharp, I like to do 3 notes in ones. And then the F sharp, A, G. And then putting that together. Which sounds like I'm a big kid now to me. I don't know if those are close to the pitches or what, but like that's where my head went. Early morning yoga followed by an espresso has some weird thoughts coming today. And then treating measure 11 similarly. And looking through where those things might be showing
You
up.
gotta do your sound.
All right, so and if I noticed that my fingers were being uneven on any of those, I would have done them more than one time. With my students, I generally try to get them to do things 3 times in a row before we move on, even if they nail it the first time. If they nail a D major scale the first time, sure, let's move on. We've practiced that enough away. But if they hit those little thirds on the first time, I might be like, let's do that again, just to make sure we're going to feel confident with that next time. And then I listen for the consistency of going on in the fingers there. Any other things that we might notice in that opening section of like things to teach before they get practiced wrong? I shouldn't say wrong, poorly.
Not necessarily things that might go wrong, but something I think that helps a lot of us when we're looking at a new piece for a first time or working with a student on a piece for a first time is sometimes that the technicality of what we're working on can be really daunting. So a lot of times I'll say to my students, just play the natural shape of what you see. And sometimes I'll also have them take a piece of tracing paper and put it over either the printout or the music and just have them trace the shape. Because if we think about the shape, a lot of times dynamics will happen, color choices will happen, phrase things will happen automatically. So I would try maybe that approach, and rather than saying play the articulation, play the dynamic, I would just say to them, maybe play the shape that you see. So if it goes up, maybe a little bit louder. If it comes down, a little bit softer, things like that. Because it gets us away from the technicalities of how to play the flute and just allows for a little bit more imagination and exploration.
Wow.
Yes, I love that wow from Daniel. His mind's a little bit blown right now.
It's just such a nice thought.
It is a nice thought. Those of you who are using tablets too, it's sometimes fun just to put on the colorful highlighter and do something similar. And then you could the overlay can stay and you can delete it later. But the tracing paper idea is really great. I probably have tracing paper in my basement at my parents' house from when I was a kid. So I'm gonna have dinner with them tomorrow. Maybe I'll see. Maybe I'll go down there and see if I have any tracing paper. For me, also, one of the things that I always have to avoid doing wrong or making mistake, measure 13, the repeated pitches. My brain just doesn't do repeated pitches. It's like, that's a scale. And so I want to play it as a scale. So I would pre-mark T's between the 2 repeated A's. The G's, I think I see better because they're stemmed differently, but then I'd put the letter T between the 2 F sharps also, just to remind me to play to tongue. Because when I see smaller note heads, my instinct is that I have to move my fingers faster. So that's a caution I do for myself. The next little chunk, starting in measure 17, any thoughts or concerns or cautions that you would pre-teach to your students or your peers, so that way they're practicing with the best goals in mind for that section? So with my young students, measure 20, technique wise, measure 20 is the hardest technique of the entire piece, probably. So that is probably something that I know that many of you have done these things with me before. I'm a big fan of keeping scrap staff paper everywhere. And I don't know if I have any at this desk. But I write the notes out without any stems. I just write the pitches out, and then the students can play those pitches with any rhythm. So if I had this clump of notes, the F sharp A, G sharp A, B, A, G, F sharp E, A, C sharp A, B, I'd probably just write the note heads of that one measure, and then let them start playing around, make it a game where they could create their own original sound for musicians. So that's measure 20 without rhythm, or with different rhythm, right? You could play those notes in that order in, it's not infinite, but in a number of different ways before you start to get bored. And then you have the student participating in a creative element while they're still working on the technical aspect of those note groupings. And so that is a way that I find to be fun for my students to start working on the technique. Of course, on days that they are annoying me, I would have them do the more structured beat plus a note, 40 or 50 times, depending on if they practiced or not that week. The swing, just rhythm distortions, and the reverse. And I, depending on how it's going, might have them play all 6 of them a couple of times. Any other ways that you all would have your students practice that measure? Or peers?
I
Or
assign them to go watch cartoons. This piece was used in so many cartoons, I probably heard it hundreds of times before I was old enough to pick up a flute. The little ones coming up now, they don't have, that it's not in their head, right? They may have never heard this before.
I can't think of a cartoon. I've seen it in a cartoon. I'm curious. Have you noticed one, Sean? Put it on the
oh, I'm sure I can Google up one. Let's see.
Any other thoughts with how you'd practice or teach that measure?
Sometimes when I have in my own practice, or if I notice that one of my students is struggling with a passage like this that's technical, I think reading it backwards, I don't know the psychology of this, but this always seems to iron out problems for measures or passages that are somehow just hard to get in the fingers. So if I'm practicing something like this and I'm struggling going left to right, I would actually read it right to left and go backwards a few times. So if I'm starting from the B and then the next measure, and I might do that a couple times, and then when you read it left to right, I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but is so proven for me and some of my students that just that distortion of reading it backwards a few times, when you then read it the correct way, it sort of irons itself out. So that's something maybe to explore.
Back in my band days, thank you for that, Nick. Back in my band days, I did a masterclass with a conductor who said muscle memory works the same way forward and backwards. So whatever you practice forward, practice backward. He was specifically talking about runs and band, like if you had a run, do it forward and backwards, kind of a thing. And this is a run, but it is a little bit, I guess, a little bit more awkward, but I think it'd be fun to practice that. I never I just accepted whatever my teachers told me to be true at the time. Now I question everything. I question too much stuff, but like, that's one of the things that some famous conductor told me, muscle memory works the same forward and backwards, that I'm happy, but I'm ignorantly happy believing that that could be true. So that the fact that you said that too, Nick, actually made that like 22-year-old band teaching assistant in me like feel really satisfied by what I learned back then. Thank you. Another like just kind of, I guess, cautionary when I'm teaching, I'm not saying like caution students. I'm like, hey, let's practice this first, right? Because caution makes them concerned, and let's do this first is a better attitude. Those descending leaps, the descending octaves, kids pitch stuff like that. So I might have them work that. And I like to work on the second note as the target note. So the lower note, I'd have them start on the B and find its centered pitch. And I don't know where my pitch is right now. And growing the interval, but still finding that release pitch. Our bodies tend to follow the shape of the music, the topography of the music. And a common yoga saying is the body follows the intentions of the eyes, which is why like they're saying like look at your, find your drishti, your focal point. But in music it's kind of the same. And especially when you're teaching younger kids, you might notice them like moving their heads up and down with the music. So common thing to avoid there was right. Getting those heads zings. So if you start with that foundational note and grow the interval through a sense of stability, that tends to have the players feel like they know where to place it a little bit better. The last half of this, any thoughts? Things that you would teach to your students? Things that you would yourself practice?
I think a little bit of what you just spoke about and demonstrated is going from these extremes on the range of the instrument, right? So pretty much before it's been pretty much segmented into like very stepwise motion or close together and then the leap, but this is like very wide all of a sudden. So I, especially for myself and my students in the low register, as you just demonstrated, there's always the tendency to drop our heads when we go down for whatever reason. Right, and then everything goes flat. So I'm stealing this from Sharon Sparrow, who is the assistant principal flutist of the Detroit Symphony. I've been working with her recently. And I love this idea that she has for when we have to dive down into the low register. And so a way to remember not to dip our heads, anything that's C in the staff and below, she says don't go below C level, right? So we don't want to drop the head. So we want to stay where we are with our chin and our head at C, and then just use the flexibility of the embouchure to guide the air down into the instrument. So not, right? Because then I'm cracking, I'm missing the angle of the air. But if I keep my chin at sea level and use the embouchure and to guide the air down, it's right there.
That sea level is a great, like, easy to remember thing too, and it's kind of fun and playful. I like that a lot. I'm going to start using that. So thank you for sharing that, and thanks Sharon for sharing that too. I don't know if I'm going to completely misinterpret this, but like back between the age like 16 and 22, I took several lessons with Tadeo Coelho, and he'd sometimes take a cassette tape, if anybody remembers a cassette tape, and like stick it between my clavicle and my chin so I couldn't move my head down like that. So I don't think I have any cassette tapes anywhere. I'm sure they exist, but you all, just like something to keep you from doing that. And it's a good realization. He was like, if you move your head too much up, you're going to drop it. If you move your head too much down, it's going to be uncomfortable. A couple weeks ago or a couple months ago in this group, we practiced the one-handed stuff where the right hand grabbed the barrel, and then we played just warm-ups on just the left hand. The A interval, at least, is something that we can practice that way. and finding then that if we do that kind of warm up before this, then that will help with what Nick was saying of avoiding the ups and downs there too. But yeah, there's some great big leaps. Most of the leaps fit within an octave, except in this particular passage, measure 26, we have that high D to the low A. So that's is that the only interval in this piece that is larger than an octave? Then measure 30, we have the F sharp to the A, so that's greater than an octave too. About two intervals that are greater than an octave. So those might be ones to just give a little bit extra interval attention to. And great. So any other thoughts about this Gossec Gavotte as we are exploring, enjoying music more from the performance aspect, from the teaching aspect, from the community aspect, all of these things? What other thoughts about the Gossec Gavotte do we have?
I have a thought in general just about articulation, because I think when maybe younger students or we see articulation right off the bat, we go to our taka, or, so you get that really forward tongue. It's more tongue than sound. And something that I've been experimenting with recently in my own articulation journey is to find a syllable that gets more tone than tongue. And I found that toe, so if you're thinking TOH, toe, it really gets the tongue out of the way super fast. It drops it in the mouth. It keeps it really wide. So rather than thinking tut 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 tut, if you think toe 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 toe, and you can hear in my voice even just the change in the resonance, right? Tut 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 tut. It's kind of choking off here. But if I have toe 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 toe, there's already so much more bass in the sound, so that totally translates into flute playing as well. So if you're working on articulation with a student or anything in your own repertoire, I would recommend trying different articulations, and I've found that toe seems to be a really nice one to keep extra resonance.
I like that. Toe is still plenty bouncy. So I with staccatos on my students' music, I'll oftentimes take a pencil and make them bigger. So instead of being a little point, they're like a big old circle above the note. And I try to have them think of it more as like a bouncy ball or a beach ball type of thing. And that toe is automatically creating that shape in your mouth. So great. Any other thoughts or suggestions or questions? All right, my friends, this has been a pleasure. Again, next month, so we've got another week on this yet. Today's the 21st, and this is a long month. We go to the 31st. So there's 10 days to work on the Gossec Gavotte, the U Nocturne, which I just sight read this morning. Gorgeous. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to play it. And then the Mozart Rondo in D. Next month, the bigger group will be starting on 2 excerpts from the Nicole Chamberlain and Mary Matthews from Into the Beyond, the new book from Beatboxing and Beyond. The links for the free downloads will be on our site. We're asking that you not share them with people who want, but we are asking that you encourage people to join the group. In addition, Flute World will be offering 20% off those 2 sheet music titles for the next 2 weeks. And again, we're encouraging people to be part of this group in order to get 20% off of those 2 titles. So I hope that you will enjoy continuing to play whatever it is that you're working on this October, and also be excited about starting November and doing something a little bit more playful and a little bit, well, for me, new as we close out the year. Y'all have a great week.